When a relationship relies entirely on external status, the slightest emotional pressure causes the whole structure to collapse. Society constantly tells older men that dating a younger woman requires an endless supply of money, luxury, and status. It sets an expectation that you have to constantly buy her attention. Relying heavily on your wallet creates a purely transactional dynamic. You get compliance, sure, but you completely miss out on genuine emotional loyalty. This matrix breaks down how to build actual chemistry. We have to move away from the transactional default on the left toward what we call the emotional anchor on the right. The default model relies on money and rigid control as its primary inputs. It's about leveraging what you have to manage the dynamic. Moving over to the emotional anchor, the required inputs are entirely different. Here, you are providing validation, honoring her independence, and offering active presence. To make that shift, we are going to evaluate 3 specific communication pillars that successfully bridge the generational gap, requiring 0 financial leverage. The trade-off here is straightforward. You sacrifice the ease of simply swiping a credit card, and in exchange, you put in the psychological effort required to validate your partner's internal world. Let's look at the first pillar, engineering psychological safety through anti-control. Many older men naturally fall into a traditional protector role. The instinct is to lead, manage the logistics, or mold a younger partner. The required input here is explicitly telling her that you respect her drive and choices. You have to actively verbalize that you are not there to manage her life. Doing this immediately dissolves a very common fear. Younger women often worry about being patronized or dominated by an older partner. Stating your intentions clears that anxiety away. This scale illustrates the required trade-off. You have to surrender your ego and the comfort of the traditional in-charge role. It can feel a bit destabilizing. The second part of this equation is affirming exactly who she is right now. You need to assure her she doesn't need to change a single thing to fit your ideal. When you remove the pressure for her to act like a personal improvement project, you create a psychological sanctuary. That safety is exactly where true emotional equity takes root. That brings us to our second pillar, intellectual and energetic validation. This means shifting your focus away from her physical attributes and toward her mindset. This quadrant chart maps relationship tactics. As you can see down in the bottom left, flexing wealth and relying on physical compliments sit firmly in the low-effort, low-impact zone. Complimenting her curiosity instantly separates you from men who only see her youth. To move up to high impact, you have to put in high effort. Validating her intellect requires active listening and actually engaging with her ideas, rather than just passively nodding along. The second input here is telling her exactly how her energy affects you. You communicate that her passion makes you feel alive and wakes something up inside you. This empowers her. Instead of feeling like a passive accessory on your arm, she realizes she is an impactful, meaningful force in your life. The trade-off is that energetic validation requires vulnerability. You have to drop your guard and admit that you benefit deeply from her presence. When you validate her spirit instead of just her appearance, the emotional connection deepens into a high-yield asset that financial resources simply cannot replicate. Let's examine the final pillar, mutual grounding and reflection. The required input is simple but rare. You verbally acknowledge that she brings clarity to your life and that her presence grounds you. Doing this signals high emotional intelligence. It proves you view her as a genuine, long-term influence rather than a temporary distraction. 2 entirely different paces of life can harmonize smoothly without one current overtaking or drowning out the other. The final trade-off asks you to step away from the relentless pursuit of status. You have to force yourself to slow down and practice actual self-reflection. Choosing to treat her as a stabilizing anchor is the ultimate proof that you are operating within a mature growth framework. Looking at this decision tree, we can see that optimizing for perfection or leaning on resources are the wrong metrics entirely. If a man relies heavily on wealth to maintain the relationship, the outcome is clear. The dynamic becomes highly transactional and deeply fragile. On the other side, those who choose the growth framework and prioritize emotional presence build something entirely different, a secure and resilient bond. To avoid that trap, this archetype must pivot. They need to swap the convenience of spending money for the much harder work of emotional vulnerability. If you are the traditional protector, your path is specific. You must actively deploy those anti-control phrases we discussed if you want to earn her authentic respect. For the authentic optimizer willing to put in the work, utilizing these 3 pillars ensures a connection that easily outlasts any initial superficial attraction. Ultimately, the highest return on investment in an intergenerational relationship comes from a simple shift. Say less to impress and communicate more to connect.